Hello, welcome back to the TheRoughMixPodcast. This is episode 18. It's your host, Trunks. We've got Eli underneath me. We've got Jordan to my diagonal direction, and then we got Vic. I don't know what else. I was going to say diagonal direction. But so today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to get the low end right in either your beats or your mixes, or how to enhance the low end, anything that's to do with bass and low end. We're going to try to talk about our tips and how we get it all to be enhanced in our mixes or beats. So first, I'm going to let Jordan talk because he's doing more on the beat side. And then me, Eli, and Vic will all talk about more. We'll give our tips, I guess, on the beats, but we'll also try to give tips on mixing. So go ahead, Jordan.
As far as mixing beats, I guess I'll start out with what I make first. So I make the melodies first. So depending on what melody, like I cut out the low end. Really, you should play it by ear. I started cutting out up to 160, left to right. But it really just depends on ear. And like, also if you're adding, like, cause you're cutting it out for a bass line that you're going to add yourself. But it depends like what frequency range that bass line hits, like whatever you're using. So like some 808's are like more mid-range than others. Some of them are literally just subs. So it depends on what you're using for how much you cut out. Because I try and include the most I can of the melody where it fits the 808 in or the bass line in nicely. So like I try and like fill up that whole space. But yeah, that's what I do for the melodies. Just cut it out, play it by ear. If you hear something in the high end you don't like, don't be afraid to remove that too, because you also have like hi-hats and snares and shit like hitting up in those higher ranges. Let me see. I guess for 808s, I don't really mix at all unless I want them to sound like more gritty, like grittier. I use like Decapitator, and then which is some sauce Vic gave me. So shouts out to Vic. But and then I might EQ the highs out of them. It just depends on the 808. Like if it's a really distorted 808 and it doesn't really fit the beat too well, but like I like that 808 sonically, where like I want to fit it in there, then I'll cut out the high, like some of the high. But yeah, that's all I do as far as the 808, and make sure it's loud. Usually around like -6 dB, and then I always make sure like the kick hits harder if I do add a kick. So I usually like leave a little more room or like turn down the 808 just a tiny bit more than the kick would be. So yeah, 808 kick, melody, that's what I do. On the hi-hats, depending like on what type of beat I'm going for, like I'll raise the high end. Just like since I use FL Studio, I'll use like the legacy effect option. Like if you route it to the mixer, like at the very bottom you'll see this like graph, and that's really just a basic EQ, and I just like turn that up, really just turn the high end or like the right side up like a little bit. Make sure those are leveled. It depends, like some beats you want the hi-hats to like really stand out, like some like hard trap shit, like I make sure like the hi-hats like stand out and like really take up a lot of the high range. And then like if it's more like a R&B like lo-fi type beat or something, like I usually try and make it kind of quiet or like muffled. I'm trying to think of anything else. Really there's not much, and I don't put anything on the master either, so
But
you can if you want
just
to.
let you know, we're talking about the low end, right? You're talking about you're mixing your whole beat.
It literally says, hold up.
Yeah, how do you mix it? How do you mix it when we're making a beat? I'm saying the low end.
How to make the bass hit harder. You're right.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. It's his first time being on a podcast. He doesn't know what he's doing.
You're right. Just cut all that out and give me those 30 seconds where I talked about the 808.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut. He talked for 7 minutes, and he talked for 7 minutes, and only 30 seconds were actually about what the topic is.
It's super basic to make the bass hit. Like it really is. Just make sure it's louder than anything else.
There you go. That's a good one. I guess just listen to your ear. Make sure like use your ear as a tool. That's a good. I mean, yeah, I understand that. That's pretty much what everybody says. A lot of people don't care about the number where it hits. That's just a guideline, and then obviously you use your head from there, your ears from there, see how it sounds. But I'm gonna give it off to Eli and see how he does it. So for Eli, since he also makes beats but also engineers, and a lot of times he'll have track outs or he'll just have a 2-track. So all right, for you, I'd say talk about what you do to your low end when you're making a beat, and then talk about when you get a 2-track and when you have a track outs. So go ahead.
Okay. I'm gonna go a little bit into trackouts because I've had a few sessions where I have been lucky enough to work with trackouts. We've talked about this before. It's just getting all your instruments in a separate stem in a separate file so that you have control of the level and pretty much everything of each instrument instead of getting a 2-track MP3. But I'm going to let Vic talk a little bit heavier on that. I'll talk about a few things I've done, but I'm going to let Vic talk about heavier because he actually was at a studio previously where he was mixing a lot of beats, not even songs sometimes, right? Sometimes it was just like mixing beats and stuff. Yeah. So he got pretty good at that, and he knows, he'll just have more stuff to talk about, I think, on leveling trackouts, or mixing the low end on trackouts, my fault. For the beat, a lot of time I really don't focus on the bass until the end because the bass is so like prominent in hip hop, and especially in the songs that we make, and especially with having like really hard punchy kicks and like loud. If we're using an 808, if it's not like a sub or a bass or like a an analog keyboard emulating a bass, something like that. The 808 in the bass in the low end, I don't try to worry about until the end of the mix or the end of creating the song, because I feel like if I focus on that, it's going to take over the rest of my mix for the entire time. And I'm just going to be focusing on like fitting everything around the bass rather than trying to fit the bass in with the rest of the mix. So, I mean, I understand if you want it to be a bassy song, or if that's the point, if it's like just one of those songs like those 10K Cash songs where it's just like it's just drums, so the 808 and the bass have to be like big. But for mixing and like sculpting the low end on my beats, I kind of tend to just I'll do like a little bit of compression, maybe a little bit of parallel to like just like bring it up. Some multi-band compression with the C6 if you really need to make it pop, or like if it doesn't have enough like what did you go like 325 or 250, bringing up like a low shelf and like just making everything rise above that frequency sometimes will make it pop. I use R bass, but the R bass I've found recently has been like way too heavy. Like it adds just way too much to the 808s if they're already distorted or if they're already like clipping. So I don't do too much honestly for mixing or for mixing the beat. I try to let that kind of just do its own thing, and then if it wants to have more punch or something, if the artist wants it, then I'll add it. But I just try to make it fit in. I don't try to let it take over. Like every other instrument, like Jordan was saying, hi-hats and stuff, like try to make them fit in. Not everything needs to stand out, because a lot of time we're sitting there making it and we're like, oh, I made this really sick hi-hat line, or I made this really sick 808, I want everyone to hear it. That's fine, but your mix might just turn into that sound, and then the whole beat is just like kind of it just doesn't fit with the other instruments. And I'm going to keep it short on mixing so that I don't go too long, but I kind of work the same with mixing. Like when I get it, especially if it's a 2-track, if it's just an MP3, I don't try to go too crazy, because you can't, especially with MP3s, you can't go too crazy bringing up your low end. I'll use the tube tech or the pull tech, right? Yeah, I'll use the pull tech and bring up either 30 or 60 hertz. Sometimes I'll do the 100 hertz because it actually warms up the low end. It doesn't make it so like rumbly. It actually just kind of gives it a nice like warmth, which I like. But I really don't do too much. At the end, there's a little bit of multi-band compressing at the end, but and like I was saying, it's different with trackouts. I've only had trackouts a few times. The only thing I would say, and this is for all instruments, and we've talked about this before, doing filters, high pass and low passing certain instruments, not really hard, just a little bit, just bringing down like your bass, like to the point on a low pass where you're not interfering with the higher frequency, so you're not even hearing from that instrument. If you have trackouts, you're able to do that. And yeah, parallel compression. Just I don't know, just sculpt it. Don't do too much. And remember, if you're mixing, like we've said, it's not your beat. Like just keep it simple. And I'm actually kind of disappointed in Vic right now. Sorry, so I'm just camping the chat. this is a quick shout out because this is, I guess, kind of the reason that I'm here. For those who don't know, this is the Flatbush Zombies behind me, one of my favorite groups. And Eric, the dude up here, I can't see which way I'm pointing. On my left, I guess if you're watching this, is the producer for them, and he's one of the reasons I got into beats. Well, probably the biggest reason I got into making beats and hip hop. So shout out to them. And that's gonna finish up mine. I'm gonna pass it back.
Yes, sir. That's back to me. For me, I'm gonna start off with making about the beat. The first thing, honestly, the best thing I give everybody is your beat sound choice or your like 808 choice of selection of beat. Like, whoa, I just messed myself up. Your selection of your 808 sound basically is like, don't pick an 808 that's already not even like sounding good. Like, don't pick an 808 to try to like spend 20 minutes and try to make it sound good. Pick an 808 that is already sounding good, and then your job is to then enhance it if you want. Like a lot of times I pick an 808 that doesn't need any work to be done to it other than leveling it and maybe tweaking it EQ a little bit, like when I'm making a beat at least. So the first thing is I would don't make sure you have high quality sounds. I think everybody that I've watched like growing up in music and like watching YouTube videos, everybody said pick a good sounding 808. Don't pick a trash sounding 808 that's like detuned like 4 times. Don't like you just pick a good sounding 808 that knocked hard. As soon as you play it, you're like, okay, that's something I could think of. Not just because it's loud, but just because of the quality of the 808. Don't just pick it because it's loud and it hits. You can make anything loud. There's literally a volume knob on it to turn it up if you want to make it louder.
Oh, I'm not trying to cut you off, but I was just saying that's for sure. What I kind of was trying to get to, and I just wasn't able to say it. But yeah, that goes along with like fitting in the mix. It's exactly what he's saying. Just because it's fucking loud does not mean that it sounds good.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want it to be, I think the first thing you should do when you put in your 808 is, if it's low and you think it's low, the first thing you do is push the button normalize to make it normalize. Or in any other DAW, whatever you have, just click find a way to put it on normalize. Look it up how to normalize my 808 or something. So what normalizing does pretty much is bring it to the loudest it can be before it clips. That's what normalizing is. So I do that for sometimes. Honestly, I don't do that for my kicks. Sometimes I will, sometimes, but I don't. But just because I like the gritty kicks, loud hitting, hard hitting kicks. So for 808, obviously, first thing is your sound choice. Second is cutting out the low end of your melodies. Even on some snares, maybe not really any snare is going to go down to 100 hertz. It's kind of, if you do, it's kind of, I don't know what it's doing there, but cut out some low end if it is in the instruments that you're using, snares, perks, hi-hats, stuff like that. Another one is, I think, cut out a lot of like the low end out of a tom. It kind of gets down there a little bit, but it doesn't interfere too much. But for sure, your melodies and for sure, like snares and stuff like that, anything that can interfere with the low end, cut out. And that's all I have for. I guess I could say something. I could say a tip on what I do on the beat sometimes. I add like sausage fattener or decapitator. A sausage fattener is a goat. That's like everybody knows about that. So I would say sausage fattener, and it's like $20 or something, or maybe 10. I don't remember. I think I got it for 10 for some reason. I don't remember how. And then so sausage fattener, decapitator, like Jordan was saying, I got that from Vic actually too. Probably not. I probably learned it myself, and I told Vic, and then Vic's claiming the fact that he thinks that he made it, but I made it. So I got that. I think we actually got it from Alex Samay. I think so. Or we got it from somewhere. There's no way Vic figured it out. He's not that smart, bright, whatever. There's no way he thought about it himself. And yeah, that's all I do for the beat. That's honestly all I do for the beat. I'm not gonna let you talk, Vic. It's my turn. Every episode I get cut off. This is my turn to talk right now.
On the what's it called? On the topic of distortion and things like that, like saturation, if you don't have any plugins or if you're trying to experiment before you buy something, if you're using FL, Fruity Soft Clip and Fruity Distortion all work with 808s and low end. You just have to be like kind of chill with it. Don't go crazy because it's obviously straight distortion.
Also, another free one on there is Soundgoodizer. I would say turn it up and then turn the mix. Okay, Soundgoodizer has a knob, right, where you turn it. So you can turn that up to where it sounds gritty enough, but then on the actual mix knob, like the I guess the output of it, you want to turn that down a little bit, like only blend in some of that distortedness into the 808. That's what I would say. That's where it's at. So that's all I do for beats. I always keep it simple. Number one thing I could give, if you don't take anything, is your sound selection. Make sure the 808 is actually a good quality, high quality sound. Don't pick. That's the number one thing I can give anybody. Definitely a high quality sounding 808. But when it comes to mixing and track outs and stuff like that, track outs I don't have. Oh, actually, I have a few sessions where I've had track outs. But as long for the 808, you know what? We'll let Vic talk about it. We'll let Vic actually talk about what he does for his 808s, and then I'm gonna copy it down and then say I made it in the next week's podcast. Say I made my whole 808 chain. It's all right. But as for the 2-track, the first thing I can tell you right now is, like I've said in every single I think mixing video, is to use a EQ and take out the snare a little bit, like dip out some of the places where the vocal lands. So wherever the vocal sits in the frequency wise, then I would suggest taking that out in the beat. So when it comes to low end mixing, though, I would put I think the free one on Pro Tools I think it is free. No, it's not free. I forgot what version of Pro Tools you have to have or something, but it's the Air Stereo with widener. Is that free? Is that technically free? I'm not sure if it's free because we had to download it.
I think it's free if you have like a Pro Tools subscription.
You just go on the Avid Central or Avid, whatever the like, you know what I'm saying, the workspace thing is, and then you go to products, Air. The whole Air series is free. All that stuff is free. It's just like an add-on that you have to have a Pro Tools subscription to download it for the first time.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, the application manager is what you're talking about. Avid application manager. And it's like all the Air stuff, and that comes free with like a subscription. So the Air Stereo Widner is what I use. And I'll use that, or use Center or some type of stereo imaging plugin, and I'll make sure you can have the low end and you can have a center option where you can put the low end to the center. That's something I'll do too, is I'll bring the low end towards the center, spread out some of the highs. It just gives some difference and some more stereo shaping to your beat. And that's what I'll do for the low end. And then I'll, if I have track outs, again, I didn't make the beat. So if it's a track out and it's not my beat, I'll go ahead and put a high pass filter on everything just to make sure it's really nothing's interfering with the beat at all. And as far as that, when you're mastering or in your master chain, I would put, like Eli was saying, like the pull tech. I'll put the pull tech on there. I'll do 60 hertz is where you're bringing some more of that punch. 30 hertz is more of the sub. 30 hertz is like the sub. 60 is more about what I was learning in school is the 60, 70 is right around where the kick lands. So I like to boost around 60 just because 30 hertz, if you boost too much of that, it'll overwhelm people who don't have speakers that can go that far down, like their frequency response doesn't go as far down to 30 something hertz, So if you're boosting 30 hertz and someone's listening to it in their phone, it's like, or their Apple earphones, they're not going to be able to hear the sub and feel it. So that's more for a car type thing, or like in the club stereo, like stuff like that. So that's pretty much all I do, and I'll let Vic talk about his track outs, mixing, and what much of a beast he is, and how good his techniques are. And he's smiling right now because he knows he's gonna just destroy us on all his techniques, and he thinks he's the best ever. But he took 45 minutes for us to shoot this podcast. We had to wait for him. So go ahead, Vic. I actually really want to hear what you have to say, because I guarantee you, everything you're about to say, you didn't make yourself. Go
ahead. All right. Anyways, so like, all right. So the first thing I'll start with is like how I do it on my beats and shit. So, like for my beats, I always make my beats without mixing it first. Then once everything's mixed on FL, I do it. This is on FL mainly, but you can do it on anything. Then I lower everything, and then I start with the 808 first. Usually because it's like rap and shit. So like I start with the 808 first because like that's what everyone wants to listen to, and I raise that to like make that the center. Then I put that then I involve everything around that. So then after the 808, I'll put the kick. And like what I do it with the 808, and I actually picked this up from Eli. He said this shit hell long time ago, and like I never really like used it till now, but like he said it like a hell long time ago. But like I pan the 808 a little bit, a tiny bit, because he said that like with the bass and like rock bands and stuff like that, like the bass is panned, and like we talked about it in school, and like Eli played bass. Like I was just like, all right, like might as well pan the 808s. So I'll pan the 808 literally like 0.5 or 0.8, a tiny bit to like one side, just to make room for the kick. So I keep the kick in the middle. All right. And so after that, then after the 808 kick, then I bring the snare, and then I bring in, the hi-hats, the perks, all the other shit. And then I'll bring in the melodies and all that. Then, after everything, then I of course do some final adjustments, and then I do all my panning. Like I always try and keep the low end in the middle, and then I bring everything out a little bit. Even if you pan it out just a tiny bit, it makes room for the low end more. Um, yeah. Also, there's hella laughing and shit on the screens. They're like on the group chat right now. It's going wild. So, you know. Anyways,
Again, like I always say, all these children, they're not taking this serious. They can't stop texting in the group chat for 40 minutes to just shoot an episode. Bunch of children.
and then for my 808s to make them hit harder, like I learned this from Dave Masato. Like I'll put like a limiter on the end of them, and like I'm not really doing too much. I just put it to like so it doesn't clip, and then like instead of like putting R bass or something like that, I'll put like a saturation thing to make it slightly distort, because when it distorts, it's where you can hear it. Because if you're listening to 808s on a phone, you're not gonna fucking feel an 808 from a phone, but you're gonna hear a tiny bit. If it's a distortion, tiny bit of distortion, you're gonna hear it more. So uh, that's what I'll do, and then yeah, then decapitator, of course, with my kicks and stuff, and then the sausage fattener is fire. Like everyone likes that, and like there's a lot of stuff you can do for the low end. Like there's hella like plugins, there's hella stuff. And then
Hold on, let me just cut you off real quick. There's not one thing I've heard that is your sauce. Go ahead.
I'm not saying this is my sauce. I'm just fucking saying that this is stuff that I do. God damn. All right. And so for the beat now, for the beat, uh, so when I'm like in the studio or like anywhere, pretty much any fucking where, no one has the track outs for the beats. So like you get the 2-track, and like if you want the bass to like bump more or some shit, like you can tweak with it with the EQs and stuff. But like what I've been doing lately, and it's been sounding pretty damn good. And like we all do this. I do like a few other things, but like I'll parallel compress the 808, or not the 808, the whole like stereo file. Like if you could see my track out right here, you could see my beats have 2 cents. So I put a parallel compression. So what I'll do is I'll mute the original one, and I'll put a pre-fader on it, and I'll raise the send to like unity, and then I'll just listen to the beat through the send, and then I'll put a tiny bit of parallel compression. I'll actually nuke the shit out of it, and then it's like where it's like almost distorting, but it's not. And like at that point, I'll also put the EQ and all that shit that I put on my original beat down, because I do some stuff to fit the vocals, and then I'll mix that in. And then what I've been doing now slightly lately, because I've been mixing like more vibey stuff,
Here we go. Here's the Vic sauce.
is I've been putting the whole beat also another parallel, but I'm not compressing it. I parallel it, then I solo that, and I put the pre-fader and all that, and then I put a low pass filter only like in the subs area, and then I'll put R bass on, and I'll raise the subs, and like make it like where it's just the subs, and then I'll parallel that into the original beat, so I can like hear the sub, you can feel it, and like putting that in the mix makes it like feel more real or more vibey. I don't know how to explain it, but like when you know what a sub is, like it, like because I didn't even know like there was a difference between a sub and a bass and all that shit, like a long ass time ago. Like there's a huge difference. And then what I'll do on my master is I'll put like a tape plug-in, because the tape makes the warm, like gives it like a warm to the low end, and it kind of
What
like
tape plugin do you use? What tape plugin do you use?
I use the Slate tape plugin, the Slate tape machine.
Oh my bad, I can't afford that one.
And then what I heard this on like a Pensado podcast on Spotify, that warmth is just another word for like dull. Like it kind of does make sense, but like if you add a tiny bit, you're kind of just think of it like you're smoothing the edges, kind of is what I would say. You're smoothing the edges, and like it makes it just more glued and fit.
I get it. It's like when you're making a peanut butter jelly sandwich and you put peanut butter and you can't get it around every single corner. So when you put a saturation plug-in, it's supposed to it smooths out that peanut butter all the way to the end of that bread. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. That was good. Another thing he obviously didn't learn. He just named who it was. You know, I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of disappointed, Nick. I wanted at least like 5 more things that you would give us. All right. Here's another. Wait, you didn't even talk about trackouts, did you? Talk about trackouts.
A little bit, not really. I mean, I did, but like it's more for the low end. Like I would say the trackouts has more to do with like all the like the whole mixing process is the where you get like the most out of the trackouts.
All right, that's good.
You know.
Yeah.
But for the low end, that's just some stuff. I mean, there's hella shit, but like, we'll start with that.
All right. There you go. We're gonna get a live full 5-hour mix session with Vic, and
for all of us, there's hella stuff. I mean, that's just a start.
Yeah,
we'll be putting tutorials actually. So
there you go. Maybe we'll get some. Everybody can finally see Vic's sauce that he gives out every week, day in day out. Vic, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much are you dripping right now from the sauce? I want to know.
I'm not gonna answer that.
Wow, there's not enough sauce. It's all right. So I actually want to let everybody know that the plugins that we mentioned, some of them you will have to get on Waves, but don't worry about getting, because there's anything on every single DAW has a built-in like plugins that are bass, like bass enhancements.
I just remember this right now when you said that. I just saw this right now too on like a YouTube video that Slate. There's 2 plugins from Slate that's free for like everybody, and like one of them is like a hella famous one that like everyone uses, and then another one is pretty much like an 1176 with the all buttons in, but this compressor has no choice to put the buttons. It's already built in, like all buttons in, and like one of them is thickness knob, and one of them is a high end knob. Like it adds more body and stuff. Those are free too. So just so everyone knows too.
Look at that. Look up Slate free plugins and you'll probably find it. But that's a good one for the compressor, because that one's what you do. You use that one specifically for your parallel compression, or you use the 1176?
I use the 1176, the UA one, for the beat, and then for the vocals I use. Well, it depends. I don't know. Depends.
Would you recommend that plugin to people?
Yeah, and like I heard Dave Mansell talking about it today. That's how I figured it. I found out it was free.
There you go.
He hell likes it, and he's a beast. So
yeah, and I know a lot of people like free stuff, so you got to get it when you can. But I think to wrap this up right here, I want people to know that no matter what DAW or what like regardless, I think the best things you should take out of this video. My number one thing that you should take out of this entire video to make it low end, if you're making beats. If you're trying to mixing, then we'll talk about someone else. But when you're making a beat, my number one thing is your sound quality of your 808. That's the number one thing I think of. That's where it starts. So I think you can't get anywhere else without that. And when it comes to mixing, I would say like stereo enhancements, because if you have everything to the middle, like every sound, and it's like there's no left or right, or like nothing to catch people's ear on the sides, then I feel like you can't, or at least, I get that it's stereo because it's left and right, but I'm saying when like you don't pan anything to like the sides a little bit, or try to spread it out, make it wider. You can't have that much room in the middle for your 808 to pop out, is what I'm trying to say. If everything's more just centered, you won't have the 808 to like really just stand out. That's just a tip I give when it comes to mixing on like a 2-track or something like that. But that's for me. For Eli, go ahead.
I'm pretty much just going to piggyback off of you, and I'm going to kind of go, I know we're talking about bass, but I just want to go general for a second. All these things that we're talking about, and we've said this before, but you can go out and buy stuff, and there's certain things like one plugin might do one thing that can't be emulated as well, or isn't emulated on your DAW or whatever you're doing. But for mixing, you have EQs, you have your compressors, you have your time-based processors, you have everything. You have panning, you have distortion, you have all these things that are just in different plugins, they're in different inserts and stuff. Don't, because you hear it in a video, go out and immediately jump on something and use it every single time, or go buy a bundle because we're singing, or because you hear Alex Toomey, or whoever. It's fine to do it, or if you can get a demo, I would recommend doing that. We do that all the time. We see someone like, oh, that looks sick, we try a demo, we like it, all right, well, maybe if it goes on sale, or maybe if it's not too expensive, we'll buy it. But I have a demo. I just demoed a reverb the other day that I thought was really cool, but I don't think it was worth $80, which is what it is right now, so I didn't buy it. I ended up getting another one for like really cheap because it was on sale. That's pretty much all I was going to say. This goes for bass. This goes for high end. This goes for vocals. You have everything there. We had everything there, but just like everybody else, we had to figure it out and like realize what we were using it for. So, some stuff is going to give you that certain tone or the vintage sound, like all the UA stuff, the Slate things, certain wave stuff, certain wave plugins. But, start with first, like that's what I was saying, making your sounds crisp, using crisp sounds, like not just the bass, like make sure your hi-hat isn't just, spiking the high end, like make sure it's not coming through and piercing your mix. All these things go into making the bass better. You can't have a standout bass if you have like a melody that's just at like -3 dB the whole time. So yeah, I'm gonna pass it off so that I don't take this off, but you have it all there. You just need to find it.
There we go. I'll let Vic give a tip for like when you're making a beat, and give a tip when you're in Pro Tools.
All right. This is actually for both, so works for both. Like there's a thing we all know about it too. It's called the Fletcher-Munson curve. And that is how we perceive sound, like the human hearing. And like if you can mix your beats according to that curve, it is gonna sound good on pretty much on everything. And it's like, it just kind of, if you can follow that, keep that in the back of your mind for everything, that is like the key to like making everything sound leveled and right. Of course, there's going to be like shit you're going to tweak from it, but like it's just a good understanding to have always. It's called the Fletcher-Munson curve.
Fletcher-Munson curve. Good to know. I still don't know that, so I'm trash in Vic's eyes. I'm sorry, Vic. And we're going to go ahead and give it to the man, Jordan. Let's go, kid.
I don't have any Pro Tools suggestions because I don't even have Pro Tools, but it's good. What y'all got to say?
Buy it, huh?
All right.
Buy it. I know you got
I'm
money.
outta here.
Don't lie.
Hell no. Shit's all in my Roth IRA, you feel me?
Yo, don't let people know the secrets. All right, go ahead.
Can't put people on game. All right, yeah, so bass, what I do on FL, what you got to remember, leveling, engineers take care of the rest. Just make sure it's not clipping. Yeah, fuck y'all. Just level it out. And going back to what he said about the 808, yeah, you want it, of course. What, Vic? Anyways, so yeah, make sure the sound quality is good. And then also, when he was talking about just don't like put a louder 808, like don't think in your head the 808 just needs to be the loudest in the mix. Literally, like if you like the beat and the 808 is kind of low, leave it like that and just send it out. And then once the engineers ask for track outs, if the artist wanted it louder, like they could do their thing. So yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Very good. And that's a good another thing about using your ear. Use your ear to determine how loud the 808 should be, how loud anything should be in the beat. Anything about anything in music is your ear, what it sounds good to you. And if you're making a beat, make it sound as good to you. And then the rest is, if you like it, someone else will probably like it. And that's it. Just use your ear. That's the biggest tip we can all give you, is using your ear. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, and if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And then also share this with anybody who's mixing, who's an engineer, anything who's in music. Share this to everybody. If you're listening to this on Spotify, add this to your playlist. Like us, and then if you're on Apple Music, then go ahead and rate us 5 stars if you think we're worthy of the 5-star. But for now, this has been the Rough Mix Podcast. Any questions, also leave in the comments or DM us on Instagram. And this has been the Rough Mix Podcast, and your boys are out.